daily bread. Forgive me all my trespasses. Lead me not into dismay, but let me pray upon the highest hill. Let me know the beauty of thy will. And from it, let me not stray, but deliver me from negativity. Baptize me in your majesty. Listen me with the love that is free. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. When I realize that we are one, only with these eyes do I see. Only with these eyes do I see. And as we move deeper into this time of conscious contact with the Lord of our being, let's turn within and take a deep breath. Breathing in, God is. Breathing out, I am. Letting go of anything that we might have carried with us this morning that is not serving our highest and best. Letting go and letting God be God in us right here, right now. I am indeed open and receptive, responsive and expressive of the truth of God. The truth that we live in an abundant universe. And all the good things of God are available to me now. The truth that we are loved. For God is love, and each and every one of us are a unique expression of that love. So we're open to receiving that love and open to expressing that love in our relationships, in our families, in our communities, in the world. We are open to the infinite possibilities that are available to us, remembering that it is God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. The kingdom is that realm of divine ideas that blesses our lives in every way. It's in these times of peace and prayerful meditation that we connect with those divine ideas, that we listen for that still small voice that brings us the divine ideas to which we take action on. And that's where we meet God. We take those divine ideas, bring them into our minds and hearts, nurture them, nourish them, and then allow them to manifest in our lives. So we remain open and receptive to new ideas, to new possibilities, to the infinite possibilities of life. As we put aside those challenges and fears and regrets and judgments and betrayals, and move into the heart of God, allowing ourselves to be taught, allowing ourselves to move forward in all areas of our lives. I am open and receptive, responsive and expressive to the infinite possibilities of God's love. I am open and receptive, responsive and expressive to the infinite possibilities of God's love in the quiet, in the stillness, and in the silence. And as we take a deeper breath, gently bringing our awareness back to this time and place, we do so with gratitude for having touched the stillness, even for this brief moment, to hear that still small voice that guides us ever upward and onward on our journey home into God. We give thanks and pray this all in the name and in the nature of the indwelling Christ presence as we sing two last verses of Deliver Me. Thy word is heard from mountains high, in valleys low, through summer skies, in lands of foreign lands where there is peace. Namaste, Satnam, Vaheguru Jai Sitaram. I behold the Christ in you. From Catholic saints to Hindu names, Buddhist chants to Zen refrains, bless all the paths our feet walk to be free. Namaste, Satnam, Vaheguru Jai Sitaram. I behold the Christ in you. I behold the Christ in you. I behold the Christ in you. And it's my honor to introduce Michael Beecher, who's going to sing our special music today.
Nothing to say, nowhere to go, nothing to do. I have no promises to make, no one to know, nothing to prove. It's a strange sort of existence, somehow it seems so true. The only thing I really know is that I don't know a thing. The only sound that I hear now is the silence when I sing. The only sight my eyes can see is the darkness of my dreams. This is how I'm born to be empty. I know nothing is wrong, nothing is right. All is in all. Right now, everything's gone. Ambition and fight, no resistance at all. It's a new kind of intention. Somehow it seems so right. The only thing I really know is that I don't know a thing. The only sound that I hear now is the silence when I sing. The only sight my eyes can see is the darkness of my dreams. This is how I'm born to be. I'd be perfectly fine if I stayed this way forever. Nothing on my mind, and I never felt better. The only thing I really know is that I don't know a thing. The only sound that I can hear is the silence when I sing. The only sight my eyes can see is the darkness of my dreams. This is how I'm born to be. This is how I'm born to be. This is how I'm born to be. Empty.
Thank you, Michael. That's a beautiful song, and it's just a perfect song for you to sing if you're who you are, and I appreciate that. That's kind of a hard one. Kind of a harder concept, this idea of emptiness, of being empty. But it's also such a gift to be in that place of not having to push the river and not needing anything, but just to be so present to life and to be teachable from that place of emptiness. There's a fun reading that I like called Jesus Incognito by Alison Leuterman. Don't tell anyone, but even as a good Jewish girl, I love Jesus. I love his dark Semitic eyes, so full of suffering and soul, like an unemployed poet's, and his thick, sensuous Jewish lips, and his kinky, curly hair, just like mine, uncontrollable despite conditioners. And the way he always argues with everyone. And how his friends were all the poor and the prostitutes, and he would even go to hell for love. He's just like that Buddhist bodhisattva of compassion, Avalokiteshvara, except his name is easier to pronounce. It's hard to yell for Avalokiteshvara when you're in a big trouble, but oh, Jesus just comes naturally. I just don't want to say when I'm dying, oh damn. I'd rather go out like a Tibetan Lama, lying on my right side, my head turned toward the direction of my next birth. But let's face it, there aren't enough of however many years I have left to become that enlightened. However, following Jesus just seems so much easier. All you have to do is love everybody. Well, seems is the critical word here, especially with the particular people you find all around you. But then, if you really look, what else is there to do? Sometimes the more you try to love people, the more you hate them. Maybe it would be better to try not to love people and then watch the love force its way out of you like grass through the cracks in the concrete. I love that poem. And it's so honest and so risky for a Jewish girl to write that and express her love for Jesus. But obviously, Jesus is her teacher, one of her teachers that she embraces, and to the best of her ability. And I always love a different perspective on Jesus to see how people feel about him. And I also love about that reading is that it embraces three traditions: Judaism, Christianity, and Buddhism. And that speaks to unity in a sense, the way that we embrace the best of all religions. So our lesson today is what Michael mentioned earlier, Everything is My Teacher, from our book, Original Living. It disappeared. Oh, it's over there. And it's available in the bookstore if you want it. It's about these 10 spiritual practices to come into a better spiritual life. And, I found in my life that it's not even the teachings anymore. Because I've experienced so many of the religious teachings. It's about the practices. It's what I do every day to connect me with those teachings. So it's about meditating every day. For me, it's about getting out my yoga mat, being of loving service to someone. All these practices that we do that keep us connected. So I don't think it matters if it's Judaism or Buddhism or Christianity or Islam or Sikhism or whatever it is, or yoga. It's about what we do that connects us. Of course, there are those traditions and the cultures that we grow up in that connect us to these traditions. But if we go deep enough and we go peel back the layers, we find that they all go to the same thing, right? It's love. That's what all the great religions teach, and our connection to that love. So we're all looking, I imagine, at some point or another in our lives for the perfect spiritual teacher. And you might be surprised that you have already found him or her or it, whether you know it or not, because your life is your greatest teacher. Your life is your greatest teacher, and you have a life. So you have the greatest teacher that you could ever ask for. And your personality and your characteristics are going to bring you to one particular way. But it's really your life that teaches you more than anything. The problem is that we identify with our ego more than we do with the teachings. And our work is to learn how to put that ego into a perspective where we can be open and receptive to the teachings. Leonardo da Vinci said, "The greatest deception men suffer is that of their own opinion." It's what keeps us small when, who is it that said that it's just not so? What I thought was so is just not so. And I love that line in the song, the only thing I know for sure is that I don't know anything, or something like that, paraphrasing. And I found that the older I get, the less I know, right? Whatever I used to think was true just doesn't seem to be true anymore. Or there's another perspective at looking at it. So a powerful spiritual practice is to adopt an attitude which deliberately undermines this prevailing attitude of the ego. And an example of that would be an attitude such as, everything and everyone is my teacher. Everything and everyone is my teacher. And in this attitude, one is a lifelong learner. You have a beginner's mind where there are new opportunities, new ways to think, new ways to feel, new ways to be. It's kind of linked to how a scientist conducts research. And in order for a scientist to learn about the laws of nature, one must first humble themselves to nature. And in that humility, there's that opportunity for learning and growth. And this spiritual practice of everyone and everything is my teacher is a form of learning, but it's very different from conventional learning, like going to school and completing a course and getting your certificate or your degree. It's not about gaining more knowledge, but cultivating more wisdom. To grow in wisdom requires a deep emptiness, which is the best attitude for this practice. And we may have heard this story before. I know I heard it even before I was on a spiritual path, about the Japanese Zen master who received a learned university professor who came to inquire about Zen. And the professor introduced himself, and he went on and on about all his degrees and his knowledge about Asian religion and Asian history and Asian culture, but he knew very little about Zen, so he wanted to add that to his repertoire of knowledge. So the Zen master served the professor some tea, and he filled up his cup to overflowing, and he just kept pouring, and the professor shouted, "Stop, man, the cup is already full." And the Zen master responded, "Like this cup, you too are full of your presumed knowledge. I cannot show you Zen unless you first empty your cup." Meeting every experience as the empty teacup requires a willingness to stay open and vulnerable. And this is true humility. True humility is being teachable, being empty. To make someone or something our teacher does not mean that we turn our life over to it. It simply means that we allow ourselves to open to this teaching. True humility is not self-abasement, and it does not mean that we abdicate our power to make choices. It's about not being attached to a particular teaching, but being open and receptive to the infinite possibilities. So we begin the practice of allowing everything and everyone to be our teacher by emptying our cup, by being willing to let go of our attachment. It doesn't mean you have to let go of the knowledge or the experience, but letting go of the attachment and opening the mind and heart to these new possibilities. True emptiness requires true humility, which is a deep willingness to learn, and this opens us to life instead of struggling to control it. Because think about how often you control your life because of what you learned. And you want to keep things the same every day. We want it to be just a little bit better, but we're going to hold on to the way I did it yesterday. I think it was Wayne Dyer that I first heard the truth teaching that we think 97% of the same thoughts day after day. That only leaves room for 3% of new ideas to flow through our lives. You know, Wayne Dyer was one of my favorite spiritual teachers. I'm sure many of you read and listened to Wayne Dyer. My introduction to New Thought after recovery was listening to the series of Wayne Dyer's of You'll See It When You Believe It. And I think that's why I heard about that 97% thing. And recently I was listening to some of his work, and he talked about his greatest teacher, who was his father, who was a really bad man. He had left Wayne and his siblings and mother and family, and went on, and he did that like several times. He had several families, and he just left them and whatever. And Wayne grew up in orphanages and things, and foster homes and all of that, and he had this desire to find out more about his father, and he did. He finally found him 15 years after he had died, and went to his grave. And in that moment of connecting with his father's spirit, he had this incredible awakening to make his life better. I think he said at that point is when he stopped drinking, when Wayne Dyer stopped drinking, because it wasn't serving him, and he just didn't want to be anything like his father. And he had this incredible wake up. So, everybody's an example. Everybody's a teacher, sometimes of what we don't want to be, and sometimes of what we do. So, a little aside, just getting back to this teacher idea and what we know and what we don't know. Socrates said that, as for me, all I know is that I know nothing. And from the Tao Te Ching, it says, yield and overcome, bend and be straight, empty and be full. And Eric Hoffer said, in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. In other words, trying to keep things the same. And man, haven't we been in these times of change? It's been almost 2 years of COVID-19, and we're trying to figure this thing out. I know I've had incredible frustration. I remember just a few months ago, there were 70 people in this room. And, now we're down to 40 some, and with Delta variant came back, and it's just like all the progress, of rebuilding kind of got knocked down again. And it's affected so much of our lives, and we're still trying to figure it out, even though today I look around, there aren't many masks being worn in the room, and it's great to see your faces and see your reaction. That's fun for being up here, to see how people are reacting. There's a teaching in speaking where you listen to your audience, and it's hard to listen to them when you have a mask on, just listening to your expressions and things. So we need to relearn. We have to have that willingness, that capacity to learn how to do things, whatever this new normal is going to be. And in the meantime, showing up and doing our best with what we have. So it's this deep, deep learning, which is a discipline. Spiritual practice is a discipline, and when we engage for the purpose of deep learning and transformation, it's very important to continue the practice, even if sometimes it's difficult to see how discipline relates to our intentions. So I'm a meditator. I've been meditating for over 30 years. To this day, there are times when I meditate and I think nothing happened. Why did I just waste another 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever I'm doing? But the thing is about the discipline, every day I get on that cushion. Every day I meditate and I'm open and receptive to something. And one of the teachings is maybe sometimes nothing happens, and to be okay with that. But spiritual practices are cumulative, so the more that we do them, just like if you're a 12-stepper, you go to meetings because it fills up the tank. And so we have to stay disciplined in our practices to be able to learn and continue to grow. Many of you have probably seen the movie The Karate Kid. It was a wonderful movie years ago. And remember, Daniel he was getting beat up all the time by all the karate students in school. And one day he was getting beat up, and this little Japanese man shows up to help him out, and he takes care of all these young kids who were beating up on Daniel. And Daniel was so impressed by that. He's like, whoa, and did it without a sweat, And he said, you got to teach me karate. And he said, okay, but you have to listen to me and you can't complain. And, and then he got him buy all his beautiful cars and I said, okay, you're going to wash all these cars. That's the first thing. And Daniel starts, well, what do you mean, wash all these? No complaining, no questioning. And you're going to wash all these cars, and then you're going to wax them. And you're going to wax them with your right hand, wax on, and you're going to wax off with your left hand. Wax on, wax off. And he's like, Daniel does all of this, and he's so frustrated. And then he's done doing the cars, and then he has to paint the fence. All right? Paint up and down, and then you have to paint the fence this way. And Daniel, after weeks or I don't know how long of doing all this, says, I thought you were going to teach me karate. And he's complaining, and then it all comes together, right? And sorry, that wasn't very good, but I'm not a karate expert. But Daniel had the foundation of his teachings, and he didn't even know it. Just by being willing to be vulnerable, to do what he did. He built up all those muscles, and he built up, those movements. So he had the foundation of his teachings. So Daniel became very adept at karate, and he finally defeated the toughest and most skilled karate student at the All Valley Karate Tournament Championship. And the story illustrates how the story is an illustration of spiritual practice. We may see no relationship between our daily practice and our mind's version of what we desire. We may protest and grumble, but the work is simply to wax on and wax off. And when we do the practice without looking for specific outcomes, yet we know it is leading somewhere far beyond where we are right now. As a person in recovery, an alcoholic 30 plus years ago, to be standing up here is that transformation that comes from spiritual practice. This wasn't in my deck of cards. And you just never know where Spirit will take you, where God will take you when you surrender. You may have an idea. You may have a brand. You may have a theme. You may have whatever you think it is. But there's always more when we stay open and receptive to the teaching. So when I think about the poster child for being in this truth that everyone and everything is our teacher, I think about Joseph and his brothers. And the brothers were very jealous of Joseph. And if you remember the story, they sold him off to slavery. They were going to kill him, but they didn't kill him, and they sold him off to slavery, and he went to Egypt. And Joseph grew in spiritual awareness through all of the many challenges of his life. He is able to look back over experiences of slavery and imprisonment, followed by elevation to the highest ranks in Egypt and responsible for the welfare of many, and sees through it all in a divine design. He sees the divine design of it all. It is so for us as well. We may live lives of mistakes, challenges, coincidences that seem random and haphazard, but as we go through them, we find this divine order. But occasionally, we can pause to look back and have a Joseph moment and say, that situation or that person may have meant it for evil against me, but God meant it for good. And how often does that happen in our lives? How often do we hold on to that resentment? That person did that to me. Can you believe it? But if we stick with it, we learn from it, we grow from it, we get the gold from it, and then we see that God meant it for good, and we find the harmony into our lives from that challenge and show up in a greater way. So, as you know, I did have a multiple range of spiritual teachings that I practice and then I teach, and I'm a yogi. I study yoga and teach yoga, and so I also study Sanskrit and chant and do all that weird stuff. And in our song that we just sang, and I've said to you many times, the word Namaste. And namaste, it means I bow to you. The divine in me recognizes and honors and bows to the divine in you. Isn't that a great greeting? Namaste. The basis of it is namo, means to bow. Namaste, I bow to you. I bow to your divine essence. So I want to close this lesson with an experience. So, you know, music, we love music, I love music. I've been doing music all my life in one form or another, from church choirs to rock and roll, smoke-filled bars to concert stages, back to church. It was a big circle. And so I've studied some things and I've learned some things about the voice, and someone said that our voice is our most healing instrument. And it doesn't matter if you can sing on key or not. It's still your voice. I know someone who said couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, right? And I couldn't, sing on key, but he sang to his key. And that's what he would say, that's my key. I'm singing in my key. And so it's not about that. It's about the vibration of the sound that realigns our bodies and our minds and our spirits. So we're going to do a little chant here to end this lesson of being open and receptive and honoring. Really, that honoring is what's important in being open to learning new things, that you hold whoever it is teaching you with reverence. Whatever the situation in the world is, that you hold it with reverence. So we bow to it. In this tradition, we bow to it. So the chant is Namo, N-A-M-O, Namo. So it's going to sound like this. We breathe in. Namo. Very simple. You sound good already. Okay. So the first one we're going to do, we're going to send this one out to all of creation. Inhale. Namo. Next, we're going to send this out to our family and loved ones. Inhale. Namo. Next, we're going to send it out to other friends and families and strangers. Inhale. Namo. This time, we're going to send it out to all sentient beings. Inhale. Namo. This time we're going to send it out to all the animals, the four-legged and the winged ones, and those that creep and crawl on the earth and swim in the waters. Inhale. Namo. Next we send it out to the earth. Inhale. Namo. Now we send it out to all the children of the world. Inhale. Namo. We open our hearts a little more and send it out to all the loved ones who have made their transition back to spirit. Inhale. Namo. And lastly, we bow to ourselves, God's beloved, the Christ within. Inhale. Namo. Namaste. God bless you.